Boston, Boston, question, question.
Boston, Boston,
Question.
Boston, 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 community, getting community, Boston, Boston, community, Boston, Boston, community, getting community, community, getting health, health, getting health, getting resources, health, Boston, Boston, health, resources, Boston, community, getting resources,
Boston,
Boston, Boston, Boston, health, Boston, resources, community, Boston, community, Boston, health, Boston, resources, resources,
question, getting Boston,
Boston, resources, health, Boston, Boston,
getting
resources, resources, community, Boston, resources, getting community, community, resources, Boston,
question, Boston, 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 getting
community, 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 health, resources, health, health, Boston, 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 community, health, healthily,
both talk,
health, resources, resources, Boston, Boston, getting health, Boston, health, health, Boston,
question, health, question,
health, community, resources, resources, health, resources, resources, Boston, health, resources, health, getting health, community, health, Boston, getting community, health, health, Boston, health,
question, community,
Boston, resources, resources, community, community, Boston, Boston, getting
Boston, question,
community, resources, resources, health, Boston, Boston,
question, health, question,
getting Boston, community, Boston, health,
getting
community, Boston,
question,
Boston,
Boston, Boston, Boston.